Hi, and welcome back to Freedom's Herald. I'm Tom Gandley, and today I've got an interesting individual with me. GOUD Maragani is running for the Salt Lake County Clerk's position. We met at the delegate convention back in April. I was pretty impressed with this man. And he's going to tell you a little bit about the position, about himself, and about where he thinks it can take Salt Lake County. So, GOUD, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. Pleasure is all mine. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your history in politics, anytime you've ever run before, and what kind of experience you've got, what your degree is in.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I've been practicing law now for almost 20 years.
Okay.
I'm a compliance attorney at a tech company, and so what I do is I study complicated systems, I find potential failure points, and then I design the programs to prevent those from happening and to make sure that we comply with the law. Okay. Basically, my job is to prevent problems from happening before they happen. It's really, I think, the perfect skill set for your clerk's office. I'm also a veteran, so I served in both the Army Reserves and the Utah National Guard for more than 10 years. Yeah, during that time, I deployed twice. The first time I deployed to Afghanistan, and the second time I deployed to help with the fight against ISIS. So I was in Kuwait, Syria, and Iraq in that deployment. And then I think the other thing that people kind of find interesting about my background is I did run the Salt Lake County GOP's Election Integrity Committee last year. And what I did is I led a team of just regular citizens through a deep dive of our election system. And what we did is we did grammar requests, we interviewed current and former employees, and then we took tours of ballot processing facilities in Salt Lake County and Utah County. And then we developed a report that we released on May 7th. I worked with the party on that, and we did a press conference too, both of which you can find on my website, which is GOUD, G-O-U-D, the number 4, clerk.com. And I think that actually gave me a really good knowledge base to work from, so that you can see, if you look at my proposals, they're all very specific because I have an understanding of our election system. Okay. And I can hit the ground running if I win. So.
Okay, that's good. I mean, those are important issues. We have had the same county clerk in Salt Lake County for how long?
Yeah, it's been more than 30 years.
Right.
And I think what's kind of notable about this is that there really has not been scrutiny of that office during that time, either by the media or elected officials. A lot of times when you read about the clerk's office in the media, it is this kind of glowing, they run elections perfectly, and usually the reporter or the elected official will say, well, I took a tour of their ballot processing facility, and I came away knowing that everything is being run perfectly. And the way I think about it is, when somebody comes to my house, and I'm assuming I'm not the only one who does this, but you kind of pick up the clutter, and then you throw it in a closet or you throw it in a bedroom, and you give them a tour of your house, but you don't open that door, at least if you're normal. Right. maybe you do, but I don't. And then
not if I can help it. No.
And so you don't really show them everything. So taking a tour is not a sufficient basis to say that a system is being run well. It takes more than that. And I was telling you, I've practiced law now for almost 20 years. For part of that time, I was a litigator. And in litigation, what I learned is that you have to see documents, you have to talk to people, you have to take tours. You have to do all the things we did on that committee in order to really understand a system and find the truth of how it's running. And, that is, I think, what we did. And that's how I've been able to come up with all these proposals that address very specific issues that we found when we were running that committee.
Yeah, as they say, I mean, the devil is in the details. If something's going to slip through the cracks, and this has happened in other states, that there are little issues that come up, that there are breakdowns, whether they're just logistic breakdowns between one point and another to count votes, or whether they are actual systems breakdowns. You brought up just a few minutes ago, the issue was down in Georgia, where
so but let me say this. My proposals are all based on what we found in Salt Lake County, so they're actually not, I don't have to go. I think it's informative to keep track of what's going on in other places, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it happened in Salt Lake County, but we should take that as something that could happen and prepare to make sure it doesn't. So the Georgia situation, so there was a primary election in Georgia. It was with 3 Democrats. It was for the equivalent of a county council position.
Right.
So when the results came out, you had the first place, second place, and third place people. The third place person saw some discrepancies in the votes. She specifically noticed that she did not get any votes.
In some districts, 0 votes came up.
Yeah. And when that happened, she actually went and complained. The county clerk there agreed to do a hand count because the first count had been done by machine. Right. When they did the hand count, she actually catapulted to first place. And the first place person ended up being in third place. Right. And this is what I want to kind of talk about is a lot of times what you hear this from pundits, you hear this from the press, you hear this from a lot of elected officials, is that you are not allowed to ask questions about our election system, about how it's run, or about the results that come out. But that, and they justify that by focusing on people that lost. And then they basically paint it as sore losers. They then question the election system. So whether it is Hillary Clinton, whether it's Stacey Abrams or Donald Trump, they use those as the examples to justify saying you can't ask questions. But here's an example where the person asked questions. If that person had been brushed off, the way I think happens a lot in our state, the wrong person would have gone, she would have been eliminated, and the top 2 were the ones that would go to a runoff. Right. You would have the wrong people going to the runoff election. Right. And I think that's not what voters want. If you go out there and you take your time, you volunteer for someone, you give them a donation, you go and you get all these people to vote and the person wins, I think all voters, regardless of party, want the person who gets the most votes to be the winner.
Well, I mean, it just doesn't get more obvious than that. I mean, you get the most votes, you should be the winner. Yeah. But I mean, in a little more detail in the voting process, let's say, there are things from one state to another that vary. And just recently in Wisconsin, for instance, the Wisconsin Supreme Court declared that voting drop boxes were illegal. I think. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think under their law, that's right.
Yeah. What about Salt Lake County? I mean, is that...
No,
by comparison.
In Utah, they are legal, and you're supposed to have one in every municipality within your county. So we operate under a different system, and our laws are different. I will say this: I actually think that because we have an all-mail voting system with the option to go vote in person, and there's different ways to submit your mail-in ballot, right? Right. You can either take that mail-in ballot to an in-person voting location and put it in a receptacle near the where after you go past where they take your ID. Sorry, I'm saying that kind of weird. Right. You can take your in-person, or you can take your mail-in ballot, drop it in a ballot drop box, or you can take it and put it in the postal service, right? Right. So I would say that what we need to do with our ballot drop boxes is improve the chain of custody. Right now, the way the clerk's office runs it is they send out 2 UPD officers. They send them out in the morning, and they will hit multiple ballot drop boxes and then come back in the afternoon. When they get to the ballot drop box, what they'll do is they'll open it, they'll pull out the bag of ballots. I'm sorry, I talk a little bit with my hands, so I apologize. But
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Then they'll seal the bag with 2 zip ties, and they'll put a tag on it identifying which drop box that it came out of. They'll put that into their vehicle. They'll do multiple boxes like that, and then they'll take it back to the clerk's office where they will log that, yeah, we got a bag out of this box on this date. What I have proposed that is different and is actual chain of custody is that I want to have a team of 2, a Democrat and a Republican. I really believe that we need to have a lot of bipartisanship in everything we're doing.
Keep each other honest, if nothing else.
100%. And plus, I think I think Salt Lake County is great because we are pretty evenly divided a lot in the way the votes come out. We have a lot of very close races, and we have a great opportunity to make it so our community as a whole can come together and say we have a clerk's office that is run in a neutral manner, and the best candidates who get the most votes are the ones that are winning. It's not the election system. But what they'll do is that team of 2 will go out. They'll have an app, and Utah County already does this, so we can use their app.
Okay.
And then they'll go to the box, they'll scan the app, so now we have a timestamp. They'll open it, then they will pull the bags out, they'll seal it with 2 zip ties. They'll also put an identifier on it telling us which box it came from. They will weigh it on a fish scale. They'll enter that weight into the app. So now we know approximately how many ballots were in the bag.
Okay.
When they drive it back to my office, we'll scan it a second time. So now we know how long it was driven around, and we'll weigh it on a digital scale. And now we'll know, we can compare the weight between the fish scale and the digital scale. My understanding is that the variance between the two will be between 1 to 2 ballots. It's a very low variance. And then after the canvas is done, I will voluntarily release the spreadsheet where we keep all of this data to the public. So you'll just be able to, you don't have to make a grammar request to get it. You can just, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
That's actual chain of custody.
Yeah, these are great ideas. And just to go back, just a few minutes ago, you mentioned that, I mean, basically for 30 years, there has been, well, first of all, no change in the county clerk. Okay, as long as, I moved to Utah in 1981 from New York. And I remember Sherry Swenson, even then, was involved at some point. I mean, that's who we're talking about right now. And this is her last year. She's finishing up. Whenever, and you were in the military too. Well, so was I. Okay, retired a colonel. I did a lot of things. Was in the Corps of Engineers. Was also in the reserves. Also in the National Guard. I was with the 1457th down here. And they don't let leadership. I'm assuming you were like maybe JAG or something like that.
Yeah, I was JAG officer.
Okay. They don't let you stay in one position for too long a period of time. They don't let you homestead because they feel like your eyes don't see the problems where they are. They move leadership around frequently. I don't know if you knew this or not. I mean, JAG, you're in JAG. That's it. They're not going to take you out of JAG and put you in special operations or anything like that. Okay. But with the engineers, I got moved all over the state because it was a development of leadership and putting eyes on what could potentially be problems. If you're stuck in one place for 15, 20 years, as some guardsmen are, okay, you become very, maybe lackadaisical is a bad word to use, but you become very comfortable. Same thing in politics, I would imagine. That if you've got one person in the same post for a long time, it's the rare individual who will stay sharp for 20 or 25 or 30 years and stay. I mean, I don't care how good you are. I mean, there are going to be things that you just simply don't catch. So this is a very good point you bring up.
Well, can I, on that,
go right ahead.
I actually think that's a great point on fresh eyes, right? Yeah. Being in any position for a long time is going to mean that you definitely will not be able to see things that somebody else could see if they came in with fresh eyes. And I'll just give you an example of something that seems small, but it's something that the clerk's office hasn't noticed. One of the divisions of the clerk's office is called the council clerk. They are the secretary to the county council. They take minutes of all of the county council meetings and then they post them on their website. And they do a pretty good job of posting those minutes quickly. In order for the minutes to be final, they have to be signed by the chair of the county council and by the deputy clerk. If you go on their website, none of those minutes are actually signed. It's meaning that in order to get a copy, like the final copy, you actually have to go make a grammar request to get them. And just if you remember, in the last legislative session, the county clerks went to the state legislature and complained that they're getting too many grammar requests, and asked and were successful at getting the state legislature to pass a bill where the county clerks, or not local governments in general, can limit the number of free requests that citizens can get if they consider them to be what they were calling it was a vexatious requester, right? But then I think it's on the county clerk to take some action to make it so people don't have to make the grammar request in the first place. And here's a great example of that. And I went through and looked. They have multiple years worth of minutes in there. I went and looked all the way back to the first ones they had. I could not find a single one that had been signed and was the final version. So to get any final version of those minutes, you have to make that request. And that's something that I think Fresh Eyes sees that the people, the current leadership did not see. And it's a good example that even small changes like that can make a big difference in how citizens begin to view the clerk's office as being more responsive to them and more transparent and more willing to work to reduce the need for taxpayers to come in and make grandma requests if we're just voluntarily releasing final data to you.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because I know that some of the listening audience is going to come. We just recently, Dinesh D'Souza came out with the 2,000 Mules movie.
Yeah.
Have you heard any problem in Salt Lake County or anywhere in Utah where there's been ballot stuffing going on, or people illegally filling out duplicate ballots, or anything of that nature? Anything that would indicate that there's an unfair advantage to somebody by people putting illegal ballots in?
I have not.
Okay.
And I don't. So, and the thing is like one of the ways to prevent that type of a thing is to have cameras on your ballot drop boxes, right? So in that report that I was talking about earlier,
yes,
the state legislature had information from that report before the last legislative session, and they passed some really good bills based on the findings that we had. And a couple examples. One is, I know I've heard a lot, Zuckerbucks, right? The money that the Facebook founder kind of...
$400 million that went to specifically Democrat voting districts?
No, that's not true.
No? Okay.
Utah County took it. Yeah, in Utah we have counties, and I think there was... I can't remember what the other... it may have been Cache County. Those counties took it. To Salt Lake County's credit, they did not take the money. So, yeah, well, so good. It is... So that money, it came to Utah. In this last legislative session, they banned it in the future.
Okay.
So
and several states have, in fact.
Yeah.
In fact, the state that I'm thinking of primarily, I didn't even know Utah was a recipient of this largesse from the Facebook
specific
founder.
County clerks. Right.
Okay.
There was a couple county clerks that took it.
But I know that it was a major issue, specifically, I think, in Georgia, where there were many different. And once again, I can only reiterate what I have read and have heard. Because I know it's not exclusively Georgia, but I remember they focused on Georgia because of what was going on in the night of the election. And then it came out after the election, or shortly after, about these, Jeff Zuckerberg's money that was given to specific areas. And it seemed like it tipped in favor of the Democrat voting districts. Anyway, well, this is what I've heard.
Well, and to that point, though, I always thought what was kind of important about that is that, look, I don't want any billionaire giving money to the government to run the election system.
No.
So it doesn't really matter. In this example, it was Mark Zuckerberg doing it through that. I think it's called the Center for Tech and Civic Life. But if it was a conservative billionaire, I wouldn't really care. I just think it's inappropriate. And, we pay taxes. I think we pay plenty of taxes, and so they should use the tax money to run the voting system and to run it well. We don't need all that, but it's just that outside influence. I think people don't like that; it makes them uncomfortable.
No, George Soros is another one that you see come up every once in a while.
Right.
Anyway,
but back to you asked about 2,000 Mules.
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I have seen it, and here's the thing. So in that report, we made a suggestion that we should have cameras on the ballot drop boxes. Well, in that last legislative session, they mandated cameras on ballot drop boxes. So now we have cameras on all of our ballot drop boxes, and they were put in place before the June primary. The only thing I'll say is I think the Salt Lake County Clerk put the cameras in a way that they will get as little information as possible. So I'm not 100% sure how useful they are. They're facing straight down on top of the box, and really, in order for it to be effective, you need to be able to see things. You need to be able to see the license plate or the person putting it in, because the idea is you're supposed to look to see if the same person's showing up at multiple boxes or showing up multiple times to the same box. Yeah. And I would say, actually, putting multiple ballots in, right? Because there are in Utah, you can take your family member's ballot and put it in the box. You can help somebody. So we don't want it to be that anytime somebody shows up at a box 2 or 3 times there's something bad going on. But there are situations where we may want to look into it deeper. So I think that's what the cameras could be an effective tool for that. But they need to be probably implemented in a better fashion. And I think some people argue that it's because of privacy concerns, but the reality of this is, if you step out of your home and you go onto any public property, you're being filmed. You should assume you're being filmed. You go to the county complex, I guarantee you that when you pull into their parking lot, you're being filmed. You go to your city council buildings, you're being filmed. So I don't think that I think that argument, to me, it doesn't have a lot of weight, because this is just another camera. There's like all of these ballot drop boxes are on government property. I guarantee you there's other cameras already focused on them.
Okay. So these drop boxes are not like outside of Smith's or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't have, in other states, what I think what you saw is they were putting ballot drop boxes all over the place. We don't have that many. I think in the 2020 election we had 22. I think we may have a couple more now, but they're very limited. And I think they're a valuable tool in the system that we have. Like I was saying earlier, if you think about, I'll tell you even though I'm running for county clerk,
yes,
I have zero impact on your taxes, on what we, like, and this type of stuff. But people, I can't tell you how many voters are telling me, hey, inflation is out of control. I can't afford stuff. Can you please do something to help? Well, as the county clerk, I can look for ways to cut costs, right? And one way is encouraging people to use ballot drop boxes instead of putting their ballot into the mail. Because when you put your ballot into the mailbox, the county clerk pays for that postage. But if you put it into a ballot drop box, we've now saved, I don't know exactly how much they spend on postage, but I'm assuming, we have 610,000 voters in Salt Lake County. We could save a significant amount of money if more people put their mail ballots into a ballot drop box.
Okay. All right.
And I'll be very secure when I implement my chain of custody proposal. So
and I think that's an issue that a lot of people are concerned with. Chain of custody. There's also things that around the country have come in that are kind of suspect in that regard in certain places. I don't know. Anyway, the campaign itself, how's it going for you? How do you feel about things? You being well received when you speak to folks?
No, I definitely think so. I am a very active campaigner, I think.
Okay.
I really want to be the county clerk. It's not, the weird part is, it's not like it was my dream my whole life to be the county clerk.
I don't know if anybody who ever grew up or had a dream to be the county clerk of anywhere. I certainly wouldn't. I can think of more glamorous things than that, but we need people like you who want to do this.
But now, I really think I have the skill set so we can take that office to like the next level of transparency, security, and really getting voters engaged in the process. So I do want to win this, because I think I can do a really good job for the county, regardless of your party. And my view of this is, I'm running for county clerk for a county of more than 1.2 million people. If I win, I will represent everybody, regardless of your party, regardless of whether you voted for me. And so I go everywhere. And so just as an example, I was at the Pride Festival, and I was there for almost the full 2 days, sitting at my booth. I had volunteers stuff helping me out too, because I wanted to meet voters. I went to the Utah Asian Festival. We had a booth there. I went to something called the Community Activist Group. This is so BLM Utah sent candidates a questionnaire.
Okay.
And so when I went through it, most of it wasn't relevant to the clerk's office, because it was a lot of questions about kind of police treatment of
law enforcement.
The clerk's office doesn't run a police office or have law enforcement. So I emailed them back and I said, hey, here's a couple of answers to the questions, but most of this isn't relevant. Can I come and meet you guys and talk to you? And I want to know, like, what are things that you'd like to see in the clerk's office, or what are your needs? They responded and said, well, we meet every other Thursday in front of the Salt Lake City Council building. You can come and meet us, and anyone is welcome, but we won't do individual meetings with candidates. So I said, okay. So I went. I didn't realize when I went that it turns out it's actually a bi-weekly protest that they do against the mayor of Salt Lake City. That was kind of funny, but
found out on the fly.
I got there and it turned out as a protest. But what I will say is this: I had a stereotype in my mind of what to expect when I went there, and they blew my stereotype away. These are people that are very engaged with their government. They were talking about details about the Salt Lake City's budget. They were making grammar requests, and they were talking about their strategy for making grammar requests. The complaints that they had, some of them, I'd like to know more. To be, because like I think what happens a lot of times, and this is everybody does this, we let the media put up a filter, and we read about things, and then but when you go and you actually meet people in person, you'd be surprised that it opens your mind a lot. And so I gave a little bit of a talk because I guess I joined their protest. They allowed anyone to speak. Oh, one of the things that was really touching, a homeless vet came up and talked, and I guess in my head, I would think, oh, well, maybe they wouldn't like him because he's a vet. I don't even know if that's what I thought, but everybody there cared about that guy, and they were concerned about him. So,
about how many people were at this?
There were probably like 10 to 12 people.
Okay, so small enough where if you drove by it, you might not even know what it was when you were.
Yeah, well, they put up speakers.
Okay.
And so when they start talking, they turn up the volume because apparently it faces the Salt Lake City mayor's office. They want her to hear them.
Okay.
And so, but like I said, they were very open-minded. I know that we won't agree on everything, and that's okay because I think that's the beauty of being a human. If we all agree, it'll be boring. But I think there's areas where I'm 100% sure we agree. I want people to have access to be able to vote. I want to be, if there are people with, for example, disabilities, I want them to be able to get what they need to be able to effectively participate in our democracy. Yes. If there are certain communities that need something different to be able to have access to the ballot, let's make sure that happens for them. Because, if you are eligible to vote and you want to vote, we should make sure you can vote. Yeah. But what I was going to say is I just thought it was a really eye-opening experience. And at the end of that, one of the guys actually tweeted, and he said, and his handle was like Socialist SLC. And he said, "GOUD for Clerk just spoke at our protest. I can't wait to vote for him." He said city clerk, but I thought that was kind of cool.
There you go.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, if we don't go and ask for their votes, they're not going to vote for us. And so it is incumbent on, I think, all of us who are running for office. Everybody deserves to be heard. And so we need to go out there and go to where the voters are and make sure we're engaging with them and having these conversations.
Absolutely. Nobody should be shut down.
Yeah.
GOUD, I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah.
You've really told us a lot about yourself, a lot of things I had not heard previously. This has been Freedom's Herald, GOUD Maragani, running for the office of Salt Lake County Clerk. Was that November 8th?
Yeah, November 8th.
And hope to see you there on Election Day. Thank you for being with us here today on Freedom's Herald with Tom Gandley. Our guest has been GOUD Maragani, GOP candidate for Salt Lake County Council. Technical advice and assistance has been provided by Sylvia Fisk and Brad Neufeld. Please continue to listen to and watch podcasts on Resilience Talk Network for uplifting stories of overcoming the odds and life's trials.